Hello and welcome back to this bonus interview series that we are doing in collaboration with the online Comic Con. So my name is Nigel. I'm the co-founder of mayamada, and I'm talking to some of the creators that are taking part in Comic Conline for a bonus episode of our Story X Story podcast. So right now I am speaking with comic creator Christian Carnouche. Christian, how are you?
Hi, Nigel. Thanks for having me, mate. Appreciate it.
No problem. Right, thanks for joining me. Before we get into throwing questions at you, just to remind people that are new to our podcast that you can always subscribe and listen to episodes on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, Stitcher, pretty much wherever you get your podcasts from. You can send us feedback at mayamada.com. Or just shout questions at us on social media, as people like to do. We are at mayamada on Twitter, at mayamadatees on Instagram. So let's get to know our guest. So Christian, let me get this right. You're an Australian comic writer living in Holland, and I just found out you have connections to London, pretty close to me as well. Is that right? I got all those.
Yep, that's correct. Okay, that's
cool.
Correct.
We're
going well.
Yeah. You've also started your own comic studio.
Kind of. I'd self-publish, and I publish under my company, Carnouche Productions, but I really only have the company to self-publish.
Okay. So that sounds like a familiar setup to what I do, but we'll talk more about that in a moment. So I guess I just want to just touch on sort of the current situation in terms of, we're all inside, living this self-isolated life. And for you as a comic creator, how has your situation changed, if it has changed, in light of the current pandemic, and how are you adapting as a creator?
Yeah, some things have changed, some things haven't. For example, as a writer, you're kind of stuck at home or in a cafe sort of writing anyway. So I guess that aspect of comic books haven't really changed, except I did do a lot of writing in cafes sort of on the weekend and after work. So not been able to do that. It's been a little bit depressing. But, my sort of productivity is still pretty good, if not better, because I'm not really socializing with friends. I'm not going out. I'm not traveling. So I am actually doing more writing than before. But one sort of pretty big negative is not having conventions. I mean, I had a pretty big convention lineup planned this year. And I mean, I just published the RESURRECTED last year, and I was planning to really push it at conventions this year. So con's been cancelled, sort of for the most part, is put a bit of a dent in those plans, but hopefully near the end of the year we can sort of get that back on track.
Yeah.
But yeah, it hasn't changed a lot, probably, other than cons.
Yeah, I mean, I was in a similar position where we got our latest manga book done in print in January, and fully ready to sort of take it to conventions. Oh, no. And then that just didn't happen. So yeah, I definitely feel your pain there.
Yeah, the timing is not great.
No.
But I guess one thing I kind of left out too is that I'm producing another comic now, and sort of through the first couple of months of the pandemic, I just didn't feel right promoting it and really talking about it, where everyone's stressed out, and then even more so sort of in the last few weeks of what's happening in the US, and I don't really feel right about promoting my projects. So yeah, that is another aspect, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting you touch on that, because I was just having this similar conversation just yesterday with a group of comic creators, sort of along the same lines of, how do you continue to put out and promote your work when the world is in this state? And I think we kind of got to a place of, you can acknowledge what's going on, but sometimes as creators creating this, these fantasy worlds and stories, it's some kind of release for people, especially in these times. So I think there's a way to do it. There's like a balance where you can acknowledge what's going on, but still give people like another outlet, just something positive that's not
absolutely
so crazy. But
I could buy comics, and I sort of support Kickstarters and stuff. So I guess I'm still reading them myself. So why can't people read mine? Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's a good point.
So you started Carnouche Productions in 2016. So what were you doing before that? Were you still making comics, or was this just like a slight transition from your workflow?
No, I just started writing comics in 2016. Okay. It's pretty new for me, I guess, 4 years. But just before that, when it comes to writing, well, I guess actually about 3 years before that, so about 7 years all up, I've been writing a novel. Right. Which we've just had beta readers sort of look at, and I'm about to send off to a developmental editor.
Okay.
And then hopefully pitch to sort of agents after that. So yeah, I've sort of been writing before that, but comics has just been 4 years. And yeah.
Cool. What's the difference in the process of writing a comic versus a novel, or like what are the main differences?
That's a hard question, because in a lot of ways there's not a lot of difference. In a lot of ways there is difference. So I guess it's the same process in a sense when you're structuring your stories with plot and characterization and character arcs and even dialogue and things. But I guess comics they're more visual, so there's a lot that you can tell through the visuals that you don't need to actually add in.
Yeah.
Like my philosophy, which I've just obviously picked up from good writers, is write as little dialogue as possible in the comics. So if it can be told through the visuals, then don't bother having the character say it. Which is something you obviously can't do in novels. You have to explain sort of most things. But there's a lot of sort of prose and narration. So yeah, that's probably the big difference, I say, is the types of medium they are. But it's kind of funny that though. So I wrote my novel for about 3 years up until I started writing comics, but I learned a massive amount in writing comics that I actually went back and applied to my novel. Sort of a lot about structuring and sort of having more punch in my story rather than sort of ambling along and sort of making it sharper and quicker. And so I sort of have been able to apply that sort of punchier type of story to the novel.
Okay. That's cool. Yeah, no, I hear you on the dialogue thing, because I've kind of found that like when you're writing, like for me at least, dialogue is actually sort of the last kind of thing you get to, because like you say, it's your writing isn't just dialogue; it's all the other stuff before that, and then you have the dialogue where you need it. So I think for me at least, when you push it further on, in some ways it kind of writes itself, and you find you don't need to put in as much dialogue because you've explained a lot through character actions and all sorts. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So I was checking out your website, and I saw you've described, these are your words, not mine, Carnouche Productions as a media production company. So what does that mean? And I asked that because I feel like we're probably in some kind of similar position in terms of using the overall brand to self-publish your work. So what does that mean to you, being a media production company?
That was almost kind of like covering all bases when I started it. So my wife's sort of a film buff, and she's talked for a long time about sort of making a short movie or doing some kind of film production. I'm really pushing her to do it because she's so creative and talented and intelligent. But so I sort of, when I set the company up, I thought I'll sort of name it that way so that just in case we do a movie or something, a short movie, then that can sort of cover that base as well. But for the time being, it's only been comics. But yeah, I do sort of dream of. We've talked a lot about it, about doing a short movie, maybe one of the short stories I'm writing or something she's written. So yeah.
Okay.
But
yeah, no, I think it's good to cover the bases. Because when we set up, so my brand mayamada, I guess we call ourselves a manga brand, but we've always had like animation in our minds to do at some point, or spread out into other types of products, toys or games and stuff. So I like the idea of covering your bases just in case. So it's not a surprise when you do come out with your film. It's like, oh, why are they doing that? It's like, we told you we're a media production company, so it all makes sense.
Well, my editor told me recently, Erica Schultz, who I really look up to when it comes to sort of writing and comics and stuff. She said, don't just get stuck on comic book writing. Try to sort of write in different mediums. Write film scripts if you can. Write a novel and just sort of expand your writing. I mean, it's not easy to. I mean, I'm not making a living off comics, and I don't sort of really plan to. But if you wanted to, it's almost impossible unless you're in the top, top sort of echelon. So just sort of expand. I want to expand my writing, I guess, and I've written a film treatment of the Resurrected. Haven't pitched it to anybody. It's sort of sitting in the top drawer.
Cool.
But yeah, so yeah, similar to you, I guess.
Yeah.
Keep it wide. Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking about like even children's books at some point. So yeah, just like wherever the ideas come from. So actually, speaking of the Resurrected, do you want to tell us, what that's about? And as I understand, you did it through Kickstarter.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So tell us what the story is and what that process was like.
So sort of the quick summary is that it's a Blade Runner-esque type sort of dark sci-fi thriller about an Indigenous Australian detective who's trying to save his people from extinction. It's sort of set 20 years from now in a place called Nova Lucis, which is basically the United Nations city-state. So they've moved the UN and everyone's sort of all together now in this city-state off New York, and people can be resurrected. They've sort of they've eradicated pollution and diseases, and it sort of seems like a utopia, but I mean, like most utopias, you sort of scratch the surface and it's a dystopia. But so it is kind of like a thriller and an action thriller, and there's a lot about sort of resurrection and our pursuit of immortality. But the main sort of theme, which I really sort of hit with a sledgehammer, is about colonisation, specifically in Australia, and sort of how we have treated the Indigenous population and how we continue to treat them. And so that was the main theme. But then we also talk about philosophical themes like personal identity and the acceptance of our mortality. And so, yeah, there's a few layers to it, but yeah. And then,
so when did you launch that through Kickstarter?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So we launched the first issue in the start of the start of 2018, around March. Right. So we'd already had the first issue sort of done. All the art was finished. That was Chrisam and Salvatore. They sort of finished all the art, and I basically kickstarted it just for the printing.
Yeah.
And so we printed the first issue, and then 2019. Around the start of that, we kickstarted the entire series, which is a 5-issue series. It was all finished. So again, we kickstarted the printing.
Yeah.
And these days, like especially for an indie guy, sort of like me, I didn't actually kickstart it for the funding. It was more about the sales. Like it really is the best way to sort of bring attention to a project and for people to sort of support it. I mean, I guess it it was the best place to sell it rather than that I needed the money to print it. I mean, I could have funded it and printed it, but then where would I have sold it? It's so difficult to sell printed comics online. And then, I'm in Holland, so there aren't that many conventions here. So, I basically lose money going to conventions because I go overseas, usually the UK. So, yeah, it's the best place to sell, I'd say, for indie guys.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I mean, we've done a few campaigns, admittedly to some mixed results, but our last one was successful, and definitely looking at how to sort of better use Kickstarter to launch pretty much every future title. Oh, sorry, what was that?
What did you kickstart? What was the last?
So our brand is like an all ages manga brand, and we have all our characters are animals. So our last comic is Hot Lunch, and it's a heist story, kind of like a Robin Hood meets Ocean's 11.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's that kind of story. So that's what we kickstarted last year, got finished in print this year, and then just looking at how I can use Kickstarter for future stories and titles.
Cool.
Yeah, and like, what was the reception to the story itself? Because I got that you're a lover of like philosophy and criminology, and does that find its way into your work? Because it sounds like you've got a lot of themes and a lot of like layers to your work, and
many probably.
So how do people respond to that, and how do you find ways to fit it in?
It is difficult. I do feel in a way that I may have had too many themes in there. I mean, I don't regret it, but I do find it is kind of, in one sense, it's quite niche. I mean, some people are turned off by what they call, social justice warriors, or they're like, oh, I don't want to be told how to think, and I don't want, obviously I don't agree with that, but so I'm pretty sure I turned some people off, but I'm not really bothered by those people that are turned off by those issues being discussed. I have been criticised online for my anti-white propaganda. But in general, it was really well received. Yeah, I had a lot of people we had a lot of reviews, like maybe 50 reviews from websites, and it's really lucky in that way. And a lot of people said that they were surprised. They didn't know much about what was happening in Australia, and they all thought it was a paradise, and they didn't realise that we had such issues. And even people. So I work at the United Nations.
Okay.
In Holland, and a lot of sort of people that I work with, really supported me, and they also said they weren't aware. You hear a lot about America and maybe even Europe, to a lesser extent, but not so much about Australia. So from that aspect, it was quite well received. The story, I mean, I'm a huge Blade Runner fan, and if anyone tells me that this story is similar to Blade Runner, I'm like, yep, in. So I often, when I'm at conventions, I often pitch it as, this is sort of Blade Runner-esque. And a lot of people are like, yeah, okay, I love Blade Runner. I mean, I know some people get sick of it, that sort of hearing about the same kind of story, but that's just what it is. So, so it was well received, and it was funded. Yeah, I was surprised how well it was funded. We were really lucky. Sort of both our campaigns made like 5,000 euros each, and it was my first comic, so I was pretty happy with that. I mean, I'm still losing money. I mean, like most of us sort of indie people are. But I think
it's like when people see Kickstarters and they see like big numbers, they, for some whatever reason, assume that goes straight into your pocket, and
absolutely.
Like they don't realize like you do actually have to spend on like whether it's artwork or in your case printing. Or there are costs.
Yeah, it went straight into printing and customs taxes. Yeah, basically EU tax. And I paid the artist, all of the artists, and the editor and the letterers. And so, I mean, if you can do your own art, that's great. Or if you have a collaboration where you're sharing profits, that's even a better way. I mean, if you can do it. if people are happy to do that, but I sort of just paid everyone their rates, and I own the IP, but I don't regret any of it. So
no, that's good. And I mean, I like what you said about, I guess, making people aware of issues. And I feel like with comics and really with stories in general, like that's what they should be about for the most part, because you're allowing someone to see the perspective from a character that's not like them. And you can use that to make people aware of things. And I know people throw around the sort of social justice warrior thing, but if done right, it's just about making people aware of another perspective in life, and that can be done well. Obviously, there are bad ways to do it, but it sounds like you've got something cool.
Thanks. I mean, I do think you have to have a good story, and I have read comics where I'm like, it's only about maybe sort of the background of the character. It's not the story. Like, I have read some comics where I'm like, this story's terrible, and But so I did put a lot of effort into the story, but I did want to share a different perspective. And I guess on that note, I am also like a white guy writing, and I wrote an Aboriginal protagonist, so that was sort of something else that I had to think about. But I had actually wrote an article on it. I had sort of loads of Indigenous friends sort of that I grew up with, and other Indigenous writers sort of review my characters and even look at the art and gave me a lot of feedback. So yeah, I'm really, I think if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have done it in good faith. I did do a lot of sort of research, and I grew up in an area with a lot of sort of Indigenous around and having Indigenous friends. So I was kind of lucky in that aspect. But if I was just sort of some white dude with not much sort of knowledge about it, without any sensitivity reviewers, and I think it could have turned out a lot worse than it did. Yeah. So I wouldn't recommend everyone to go out and just write whatever kind of culture they want to write. I mean, you got to do it right. And hopefully, I did.
Yeah.
So.
No, it sounds like, you went about it the right way. So, I mean, what advice could you give to, because I, when a time when we could all go to conventions, I'd meet some aspiring comic creators. I also work with young people, who are interested in artwork and stuff. And you as someone who has created sort of your own brand in a sense, your own self-publishing company, what advice would you give to people who are looking to do something similar to you, particularly as someone who writes and doesn't do the artwork necessarily?
A few things of, I guess one thing as a writer is to hire an editor. Like, I'm sort of shocked at how many people write and they don't use editors. And I mean, you can get your friends, you can, my wife sort of reviews all of my stuff, but at the end of the day, like, you just need someone that's going to just be completely 100% honest, someone that has experience, someone that even has industry connections. For example, my editor, Erica Schultz, has sort of introduced me to the artist that I used, actually. And, back then I didn't know anyone really. So if it wasn't for her, it would have been a real struggle, but she also helped me, sort of advise me about how the industry works. And, they were just sort of additional things on top of the actual writing that she helped me with, like with the flow, characterization, and she picked up sort of plot holes. And I mean, you can get cheap editors. I wouldn't say Erica's cheap, but she's just industry standards. And I guess for her experience, like, she's written sort of the Daredevil annual, and she sort of edited for Image Stories, and for what she's done, she's quite cheap. And so that's probably my first bit of advice, would just get an editor. And my second thing would be, I know a lot of people, especially when they start writing, it can be quite sort of scary. You think, who am I to write something? And, I'm just some sort of boring dude that, and there's all these amazing writers out there that are so creative. But one thing that I told some people at a seminar last year is that no one has your voice. No one has your perception of the world and of reality. Even if you think, oh, well, I've just worked at a supermarket my whole life, how's that interesting? But, other people haven't done that. You would have a very unique perspective no matter what you've done. Even if you're an 18-year-old, and you think you haven't worked and you've just been at school, and you still have a very unique perspective, and no one can tell a story the way that you can tell it. And even if it's a story or a theme that's already been done, no one's done it your way. So I just sort of just encourage people to just have a go. And if you have a story in your head, just get it out. And, your first go might not be perfect.
Yeah,
it might not be published.
Yeah,
exactly. Even your second, third, I'm still that. But yeah, just get it out there, have a go, and then things will sort of roll on after that. And then I'm sort of just trying to make these brief, and because I do talk a lot. And on the third thing would be just to get out and meet people.
Yeah.
Just go to conventions, meet people on Twitter. I'm now working on an anthology that I'm writing the whole anthology. I'm sort of funding it, I'm producing it, and every single person pretty much that I've hired, most people are people that I've met sort of on Twitter or on Facebook or at conventions. So just get to know people, and firstly, it's great for collaborating, but it's also just nice to know, just from a social point of view, to meet other people that have your passion. So, my friends, before I was sort of on Twitter and Facebook, they aren't really into comics. Sort of my friends I grew up with, they aren't, not at all, So, I had to get on, I had to go online to sort of meet people with my passion. So yeah, they're probably the three main things that I would advise.
Yeah, and I think, like to your second point in particular, like the idea that I guess like some people think, their voice doesn't matter or it's not completely original. And one of the things that I'm always having to be reminded is that there's really no completely original ideas. Like, I think it was only last week I was speaking to our artist about, future idea, future story that I'm working on. And I told her like this particular character, and then she goes, oh, that's like this other character in this other thing that I haven't seen. But you just reminded her, oh, okay, so someone's probably done it, but like you say, it's your particular voice and your particular perspective that creates the uniqueness. So yeah, I definitely agree with that.
And everything's been done to an extent, you just
So okay, so we're doing this for the for Comic Conline, and we're here because obviously pandemic, can't go anywhere. But you mentioned that you travel to different conventions abroad, and you've been to Thought Bubble, so we have that in common. We have both been to Thought Bubble last year. How often do you travel for conventions, and how was Thought Bubble in particular?
I traveled before I was writing comics. I traveled just like, I'm a huge comic book fan. I collect comics. I get sketches. I get creators to sign my comics. Even now, I even get creators that I work with to sign my comics. So I'm a huge sort of comic book fan. And so I've been to cons like New York Comic Con 2016. Cool. I went to cons in the UK. So yeah, I sort of travel a few a year, I'd say. And then since publishing last year, I started going, not a huge amount, like maybe 4 or 5 a year. I was a guest at Amsterdam Comic Con last year. It was the first time I was ever a guest. And it's actually 30 that ran the Artist Alley there. And he's the one that invited me to be part of this Comic Con, this sort of online Comic Con. 30's a great guy. We've gotten drunk together and... Yeah, he's a really cool dude. Loves comics. Loves it. Absolutely loves it. So, yeah, that's how I got into this. But Thought Bubble, always wanted to go Thought Bubble, but I was waiting until I had a comic to sell. So when I had the trade paperback of the Resurrected, I booked a place there last year in November. And actually, the lady who runs Thought Bubble, Tula Wate, she did the cover for the Resurrected. So that was pretty sort of awesome to go and meet. And she's hands down my favorite artist, comic artist. So to work with her and then to go and meet her and sort of hang out with her at Thought Bubble, and she's so bloody nice and down to earth. Everyone at Thought Bubble you would know yourself. Like, it's such a well-run place, and it just they're all so nice. I don't know where they
where they get them from.
Like,
it is
certainly not in Holland, and I don't know where they find them. But it's a well-run place, and everyone was so happy to be there. It was like some weird, bizarro world where everyone's happy. And you go to drinks and everyone's chatting, and you're chatting to some of the biggest names in comics, and they don't care that you're sort of not known, and we're all hanging out together, getting drunk, sort of dancing, and it was great. I was sort of sitting right in front of Sean Phillips, my stand. So he's one of my favorite artists. So that was sort of great, and I sold a lot of comics, got to meet a lot of people, met a lot of my Twitter friends, which was probably the biggest thing, probably for you too. Yeah, I guess just, it's the best con I've ever been to. Yeah,
basically. No, it's like the nicest convention, and like you said, I don't know how they do it, because we've got, like, I'm based in London, and we've got like the London Comic Con, and it's a much bigger convention, but it doesn't have the same like charm, same personality in it, and you can tell the difference between, I guess, a convention that is focused on the people, and Thought Bubble have managed to do that and keep it going. So
it's and I guess because it's very creator focused as well. It's not, they don't have sort of film guests, which is fine. I understand, people want to go and see their favorite Star Wars actors.
Yeah, I mean, there's a place for everything.
But they're very focused on the people, aren't they? Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then for this convention, Comic Conline, have you got anything in particular? How can people reach you at Comic Conline to see your work?
I guess I think 30 set up a page for me. Yeah. So I guess you would just go to, I'm not actually sure what the page is. Sort of, I can't remember the name. I always use the link that 30 sent me, but I've got a page. But you can, I won't be sort of streaming any videos as a writer. I guess there was not a lot I could do. I did do a seminar for 30 last year, sort of hands on, but I don't know how to sort of edit videos or anything. So you can buy my stuff there, and you can contact me through my site. Through the page there. And even it's not just about buying stuff, but if anyone has sort of questions, anyone's like wants to get into writing, I'm sort of happy to help with advice and point you towards, communities I'm always sort of here, and I'm a pretty energetic guy, so I'm always sort of happy to help. Cool. Always got the headspace.
Yeah. All right. I might take you up on that, actually, for myself. But
you can probably help me.
So, and outside of the convention, where else can people find you, like on social media?
My website, which I don't update too frequently, but it's called CarnoucheProductions.com. But I mainly use Twitter, which is Carnouche C, I think is my name, or just type Christian Carnouche. No, because I just changed it actually. I just changed the handle. So so it's Carnouche C. So CarnouChe. Cool. And then I'm on Facebook, same kind of thing. Instagram. I'm everywhere basically. Yeah. I hate and love social networks, but
me too.
I'm all over it. Yes. Yeah, we all do, but you can't live without it, right?
Yeah.
But I'm easy to find.
Cool. All right. Well, and like I said, if people can reach out to you and see your work and see in person a bit more about what you do. So thank you for joining us. It's been really cool to hear about your perspective as a writer and how your like other writing experiences have influenced your comic work. So thanks for joining me.
No, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been fun.
Cool. And to remind people who might be new to our podcast, you can listen to and subscribe to episodes of Story X Story. We basically do things like this. We talk to creators. We also do deep dives into stories across pop culture. You can subscribe, and also as manga creators, I think we also have a page at Comic Conline where you can check out our manga comic work, and also some of our merchandise. I think I'm also not sure, but by the time this video is out,
online, isn't it?
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, we should have both checked this before. But anyway, so yeah, we're both been able to find us at Comic Conline, and then the week after we are doing our own online event, Gamepad Online, so you can find that at gamepad.events. Other than that, our email address is feedback@mayamada.com, and you can go to mayamada.com/storyxstory to see more of our podcast. Until next time, take care, everyone.